I'm Katya,
And I'm Rin,
and we're here at the Commonwealth Center for Holistic Herbalism in Boston, Massachusetts.
and we're excited to share this replay of this week's live herbal Q&A session with you.
These live sessions are part of our herbal learning program, and you can find out more about that at commonwealthherbs.com/learn.
Check it out. But before we begin, we just wanted to remind you that we are not doctors. We are herbalists, and we're holistic health educators.
The ideas discussed on this video do not constitute medical advice. No state or federal authority licenses herbalists in the United States, so these discussions are for educational purposes only. Everybody's body is different, so the things that we're talking about may or may not apply directly to you, but hopefully they'll give you some more information to think about and to go research more.
We just want to remind you that good health is your own personal responsibility, and that the final decision when considering any course of therapy, whether it's discussed on the internet or prescribed by a physician, is actually always yours.
So don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to send us any questions at info@commonwealthherbs.com, and enjoy the replay. All right, you guys. Well, let me open up some questions here. And for people who, if this is your first, there are some new names here, so that's very exciting. If this is your first time, then you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question with your own voice if you would like to. If you prefer, you are welcome to type it into the chat. If you if you didn't see the chat yet, all you have to do is wiggle your cursor around on the video part on the screen where you can see me talking, and some buttons will pop up at the bottom of the screen, and you will see one of them has a little chat bubble like in a cartoon. And if you just click that, then the chat window will come up and you can type whatever you want there, and you can also see what everybody else is typing too. So you're welcome to do that and ask your questions in either of those ways. And we also have some that were emailed, some that people had over the holidays and they wanted us to hold on to so they didn't forget them, and a couple that came in tonight. So I will look at those, and I will say that, especially if you're new, it is easier if you don't email your questions ahead of time, because we get a lot of email and sometimes I miss them. So if you email the question and I don't answer it, that's because I just missed it, and feel free to just paste it right in here or unmute yourself and ask it. And I think that is all of the housekeeping. All right.
Hi, everybody.
So Jennifer, with her hip surgery, just mentioned, are there any herbal recommendations for recovery? I'm thinking bone broth and nutritive herbs like nettle and seaweed. And Jennifer, that is ideal. I'm super excited about those thoughts. That is beautiful. I think that I myself would also toss in something like ginger as a sort of general anti-inflammatory kind of herb. Nettle is going to carry a lot of that effect as well, and so is the seaweed. But just because anytime that you have any kind of surgery, there's just inflammation, not just from the surgery that they did and the wound and whatever, but it's just a load on your body. And so I like something like ginger just to help you kind of like clean up any little areas that can be cleaned up so that your body can focus on what you really need to heal. What are you thinking? And anybody else, feel free to shout out your suggestions in the chat or any other way.
Sochi's asking if bone set would be helpful for this. Yeah, I mean, you could take some small doses of bone set to try to get that stimulation of bone remodeling. That could be fine. As always with bone set, just titrate your dose to your body, because too much bone set can cause some nausea. You probably won't want to take tons of it anyway because of how
really
bitter it is.
bitter.
But always nice to remember that warning.
Yeah. This might be a nice place for Cotinopsis as well. Cotinopsis is really supportive of bone health, in particular bone marrow, but healthy bone marrow means healthy every part of the bone. So, and Cotinopsis is not bitter, and it's really easy to put into the broth. So that is a nice one to get in there too. Catherine is suggesting Solomon seal to keep the joints all juicy, nice and lubricated in that kind of Goldilocks zone, and I like that idea a lot. Jennifer was also asking about milk thistle to help from the anesthesia. That's a super important thing. Anesthesia has a half-life, believe it or not, of 6 months in the body. So you can still be feeling after effects of general anesthesia for literally up to 6 months. If you feel like just sort of a little spacey or a little brain fog, then that could be coming from the anesthesia. Now, if you're gonna have this kind of surgery, be really grateful that we have anesthesia, because that would be terrible without it. But it's so good to know that it just takes a really long time for the last bits of it to really fully clear from the body. I said half-life, and that wasn't correct. I meant full life. So the last residual crud to clear out. So yes, what I'm saying here is milk thistle is going to be really beautiful support in a nice, gentle way as you finish clearing out all that anesthesia.
Sure. Yeah, and you know, in a related way, there's a good place there for bitters just to work with, but that's a general health habit anyway. Jennifer's probably already doing that.
Yes.
And if not, then get on that one. That's good.
April is suggesting vitamin D or sitting in the sunshine, which will be difficult in January. But a lot of extra vitamin D will be really nice. Again, supporting bone health and other good stuff. Peggy's asking what else for the anesthesia. Really, my focus there is liver stuff and overall nerve health, right? Seaweed's not a bad idea you were putting in there. Lion's mane, this might be a really lovely time for lion's mane. St. John's wort can also be lovely. The problem with St. John's wort, Sochi, is that it does clear pharmaceuticals, many classes of pharmaceuticals from the body more quickly than you want. And after a surgery like this, you probably are going to be taking some pain meds, and you want those to work. If you're going to take them, you want them to work. So we don't want the St. John's wort while you are still doing that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little nuance there, actually. So some forms of painkillers, essentially, most of the opioids are actually going to have their effects amplified by St. John's wort. Many of these are they're drugs that do the bulk of their work after they've gone through the liver or after they've gone through one pass of metabolism there. And so with St. John's wort accelerating that, you can actually get a greater effect. That's something that I'm kind of interested in, and I've had some clients who, you know, had been taking long-term medications of this sort and found that they could reduce the dose a bit because of the potentizing effect that St. John's wort had. Now, if you're beginners, then this is advanced stuff. It's complicated, and there's a lot to it, but that is something that we've explored a little bit, and there's some research to back that up too. Yeah. Great.
All right.
Okay, I think there were a few comments.
Yeah, on the, oh my goodness, okay. So here we were, my daughter had all 4 wisdom teeth out. The antibiotics are done and the painkillers are done. So in that case, St. John's wort will be fine for her. Yep, yep. As long as she's not taking anything else, then yep. For somebody who's not taking any pharmaceuticals at all, I love St. John's wort for everyone. But it's only when the pharmaceuticals come into play that gets quite complicated. Okay, let me, hold on, we have several threads going on at once here. So I need to scroll back up and make sure that I didn't miss any on this one. Okay. All right, I think that the hip surgery is good. The anesthesia, I think, is good. Catherine asks, Would you be open to digging deeper into tinctures versus tea as medicine? I sure would be.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around how a dropper full of tincture 5 times a day is the same medicine as a quart or even 3 of tea a day. Is there a place in the course materials that I haven't gotten to yet that covers this more in depth? So
well, let's step back a minute.
Yeah, I don't think we have a specific place that specifically says this much tincture is equal to this much tea, because it really depends on
I would not do that.
Yeah, it depends so much on who the person is you're working with, why you're working with herbs at all, what you're trying to accomplish. And so maybe we'll talk about some of the things that we'd be thinking about to think about the answer to this.
Yeah. Well, for me, some of my thoughts around this are going to go to some chemistry, right? So if we look at a tincture, that can in some cases provide a similar kind of medicinal effect to some tea, right? But we're gonna be able to identify reasons why that would be so or why it would not be so. Okay. Let's start with an example of an herb, like, I'm trying to find one. I don't know, let's go with lavender. Okay, so lavender is a really aromatic plant, and not by any measure all, but let's say the majority of its medicinal effects are coming from volatile constituents that give it its distinctive smell, that evaporate, that are volatile, and that would be captured in an essential oil or a tincture or a cup of tea.
Since we're talking about it, we'll just have some real quick.
Yeah. So with lavender, those constituents are going to extract really nicely in any of those preparations. And you can take the same amount of herbal material and you can make a tea from it over here, you can make a tincture from it over there. And as long as your process was solid and you were, diligent about the steps and everything, you would be getting pretty much the same delivery of those chemicals into your body, right? Because a tincture is really just a great way to extract volatile constituents. Tea is another great way to do that if you have good hot water, and don't let them all evaporate before you get around to drinking it. So those methods both capture the constituents that we're interested in roughly in the same way. So there you could give a kind of equivalency between cups of tea and dropperfuls of tincture. But with a different example, that wouldn't really work out very well.
Well, actually, we can use the same example in a different purpose. What if we needed a digestive bitter and the only herb we had access to was lavender? If you make tea out of lavender, it actually gets quite bitter. And so let's say that we were trying to get that application. If you make tincture out of lavender, it doesn't have a lot of the bitter, like the bitter's not forward. It's very volatile oil focused.
Right.
But if I was specifically trying, if I was looking and I was traveling or something and the only thing I could find was some lavender, and I was like, all right, I'll make tea out of lavender because that's how I'm going to get more of the bitter constituents, then in that case, the tea would be a more effective delivery mechanism. And it wouldn't care necessarily so much about the volatile oils. I mean, it would be nice if they were there, but if they evaporated, that would also be okay.
Mm. Yeah, I had in mind something more like, I don't know, horsetail, right?
Oh, that's good too.
So, you can make a tincture of horsetail and it has some, useful qualities to it. Has some kidney stimulation and some diuretic effect and, a few other things. But often when we work with horsetail, what we're really psyched about are the mineral content and the silica that's present in there in a form we can use. So even if your tincture is good at pulling the mineral content out of your horsetail, and it's fine. I mean, when you make tincture, you're going to use water as like 40 or 60% of it, and the rest is alcohol. But okay, so sure, it can extract some of the mineral content, but the question comes with the amount you actually ingest, right? If I make some horsetail infusion, then I might drink a quart of it or something. If I make a horsetail tincture, I'm not going to drink a quart of it because I don't think my liver would really be excited about that. And also
your kidneys would
the rest
also,
of me.
yeah,
Like,
no part
yeah.
of you would be excited about that.
So even if they were able to extract the mineral content at a similar rate, the amount I actually end up getting from it at the end is going to be vastly different. And so I would say, especially in cases where we're trying to get that kind of earthy, nutritive stuff coming, there's almost little to no comparison between the tea and the tincture. Similarly with nettle, right?
Yeah, you're asking about nettle in a similar way.
Right, yeah. If you take nettle tincture, if you take nettle freeze-dried capsules, whatever, then that can really help a lot with mast cell destabilization syndromes and allergies.
Which we were filming about today for the immune health course.
But just, you know, allergies, inflammation, all of that kind of stuff. Nettle can really help, and it can help as tea, it can help as tincture. There's a cool study Paul Bergner was super excited about, like a decade ago, about nettle tincture helping to resolve insulin resistance. And so there's a lot of medicine coming from the plant that way, but you can take as much tincture as you can without getting drunk, and you're not going to equal the mineral nutrition, or for that matter, the chlorophyll nutrition that you get from drinking a quart of tea. So in those ways, you can't really make a direct comparison between them, except to say they're different types of remedy, and that you're going to need different effects there. Yeah. So
then there's also like another whole reason to be thinking about this is that there is the person that we're working with as well. So if the person that we're working with doesn't like tea, it doesn't really matter if a quart of tea would be better than tincture. If tincture is the only thing I can get into this person, then that's what's going to be effective. Either because the person is simply like they're not open to the idea of tea, or what if this person travels a lot and they like tea, but it's just not practical, and we need to give them something super portable. So in this case, sometimes you work with the medicine that the person will take, you know, either because it's what they're willing to take or because it's what is able in their life to fit in. Yeah. And that's why, even though I don't like capsules, heck, sometimes we go with capsules because that's what is going to work for the person that we're working with. And sometimes that person is me, you guys. So there's a lot of variation. And then I guess I would also say, since we're talking about tea and tincture, I do just want to mention that there are times that a powder is the best way, or you know, whatever. So yeah, it is less about, are these two things completely equivalent, and more about, how can I get the herb to the tissue? We're always asking that. How can I get this herb to the place where I need the work to happen? And that includes what format is it going to get there in? What is the person willing to put into their mouth or onto their body? What do we have time to work with? What herbs do we even have available to us? Because sometimes we don't have the herb that we really want. Yes.
And more.
It's a whole fruit salad of things to compare. It's not just apples and oranges. It's like the whole fruit salad.
Yeah.
Yes.
And right, like, so Georgia was saying, for a diuretic effect, you'd probably want tea instead of tincture if you were dealing with a UTI. Yeah, you know, you can think about the medium that you're working with, right? If you're trying to get at the kidneys or the urinary system, then yeah, drink a bunch of water with your herbs, make it into tea. If you're trying to target the liver, then maybe you're more inclined to work with alcohol extracts, right? Work with the tincture, because that's where it's headed anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
April's saying that I like Jennifer's question because I was thinking about pregnancy recovery, and I really like how you positioned that, because recovering from pregnancy and recovering from surgery, there's a lot of similarity there. Not that, like, I don't want to pathologize pregnancy, but it's a stress on the body, right? You use up a lot of resources, and now you have to put them back. So yeah, a lot of the same things, and in particular, the liver focus, because when we're talking about pregnancy, a big part of the aspect is there is so much happening with the hormones. first we have to build up tons of hormones, then we need to clear those out and have a different kind of hormones if you're nursing, and then we got to clear those out and reset all the hormones. So there's a lot of switching that's got to go on. And even in between the switching, even when you, okay, I have my pregnancy hormones, here we go. Okay, that's fine, but there's so much of them. And in order for your liver to keep up, supporting that is just a really, your liver will thank you a lot. So this is a place for milk thistle. If you're not taking any kind of medications, St. John's wort is really excellent. The other huge thing after pregnancy is the nutritive stuff, and especially minerals. So buckets of Nettle and Friends, also a magnesium supplement. Postpartum depression and the more serious forms, even postpartum psychosis and stuff, a lot of that is very strongly correlated with mineral depletion. So I'm not saying that your one and only solution is to take a bunch of minerals, but minerals play an enormous role in preventing postpartum depression. So that is a big thing. Catherine's asking about alfalfa for minerals, and I don't like that. A lot of people do, but I've never been into that.
Just didn't.
Yeah, so.
Not because they like, you know, betrayed you in the.
No.
Just never got into
It's just
it.
never been a thing. Yeah, I've never been into it. So if that feels good in your body, go bananas. And otherwise, nettles like crazy. Yeah.
And look, you know, when it comes to actually getting the minerals into you, you can get a lot from your tea and all that. But you will get more if you actually eat the leaves. So
yes.
If you can put them into some soup or something and actually just consume all the plant matter. Same thing with seaweed too, right? You get a lot when you cook it into the broth, even if you strain it out, but you get more if you actually eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bone broth is a really good place to get minerals also.
Yeah.
Georgia was asking for a reminder of the mineral supplement that we like best. If you are going to supplement, we like Trace Minerals Research. They make one called Concentrates, which is a broad spectrum mineral supplement in a liquid form, and another called Mega Mag, which is a broad spectrum but magnesium specific supplement. So those two are really excellent.
Yeah. Christy's asking about nettle or seaweed infused vinegar. You have the same problem there that you have with tinctures of mineral rich plants, which is how much are you actually going to consume? You know, so yeah, vinegar will help pull minerals out of that and get it into that liquid. But then, I mean, are you going to take more than a tablespoon or a shot glass of that vinegar every day? I don't know, maybe, but probably not. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. Oh yeah, and then Catherine was saying that she's seeing a lot of moringa leaf fresh at farmers markets in the Southwest now. And yeah, I mean, that's a green, eat that.
Yeah.
Good mineral content.
Purslane, if you can get your hands on that too. I love that they're growing moringa in the Southwest. It's a really appropriate climate for that plant, well, it's a tree. And I don't like to see moringa imported because that is an important food source in the desert locations of other countries. So I'm glad that we are starting to grow it ourselves here. Amanda's asking about general support for someone with gastroparesis. She says they're already drinking Nettle and Friends, and they're already drinking gut heal tea. And in this particular case, I think that's as far as we can go in a Q&A session, because there can be a lot. Oh, nope, there's one other thing I can think of. There can be a lot of different factors at play in this situation. So without knowing more about the person, then it is hard to make sort of a blanket recommendation, except there is one other thing that I definitely can recommend, and that is to consider something like a Whole30, to try to pull out any food allergens or food sensitivities that haven't been identified, because they are going to make the situation just worse. You know, it's like adding insult to injury. So although we need more information for each individual situation beyond that gut heal tea is definitely going to be soothing and supportive for anybody in this situation, and that diet changes are definitely in order. Plus, those two things are not going to interfere with anything that their medical practitioners are already trying.
Yeah.
Those are two pretty safe things.
Yeah. I mean, it seems very likely that working with some bitters or some carminative herbs could be very helpful there. But again, there are many questions orbiting around what kind of medications might be involved in that person's life. So we would kind of want to get a little more into the individual story for that one.
And also, this would be a place where our bitters, we would be choosing our bitters very carefully, right, because different bitters stimulate to different degrees. And so we don't want to make this person uncomfortable. They're already uncomfortable. So even if we want to choose a bitter to help improve the digestive capability, we want to make sure that we don't choose a bitter that's too strong, because it'll just make them uncomfortable. So we want to be a little bit nuanced with this one. But the gut heal, the nettle and friends is also probably fine. And thinking about a Whole30 or some other kind of anti-inflammatory, food sensitivity, food elimination experiment would all be fine, regardless of what other actions they're taking.
All right, Wendy writes, as someone who's a bit newer to herbs, I'm finding myself wanting to try a bit of everything and perhaps not having enough focus. Do you recommend picking 1, 2, or 3 and sticking with them for a while to see how you respond? It's so hard since there are so many options. I don't want to cop out, but I do kind of want to say that you should do what makes you feel happiest. Mm-hmm. So, how to say this? I think it's good to taste lots of herbs. I think it's good to work intensively with a single herb and only that herb for a week or a month at a time. I think it's good to follow your intuition and grab the thing that seems most appealing off the shelf today. Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts and they don't all play nice together. I think following your enthusiasm is the most important part, but I also think that, like, when the time comes that you start to ask this question, that means that something in you is wanting a little bit more organization. Right. So there is a middle ground. And that is that if you choose a time in your day that is sustainable, so let's say at 6 o'clock you get home from work maybe, and maybe the people who live in your house don't get home until 6:30 or something. So that's like a sustainable time that you have to yourself. And maybe you say, okay, I'm going to choose one herb this month that I'm going to work with every single day at 6 o'clock. And that's going to give you a little bit of focus so that you have a little time that is set aside intentionally every single day to sit down and work with that herb, drink some of it, maybe study it, like read some stuff or watch a video, and maybe take some tincture, maybe whatever, different types of ways of interacting with that plant. Yeah. When you are really focusing your attention on what are the effects that I see when I do this. The whole rest of the day, drink whatever you want. Drink Tulsi, drink them all. Have whatever appeals to you in any given moment throughout the day. And if that's 50 different herbs a day, go bananas. That's great. But if you've set aside one specific time when you are really thinking about a particular herb and you're thinking about its impact in your body, that creates a thread. It creates like a specific intentional focus, and you'll be able to draw your awareness to that, even though you're also working with other herbs throughout the day. I mean, you're eating other vegetables too, so that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Good. Hold on, let me just, okay, good. Catherine says, when I first started, I felt like getting stuck in an herbalanche. Yes, excellent. Excellent. The kitty is Lucy. There's 4 of them around here, but this one is Lucy. Oh, Wendy, I love this idea. I've been trying to have a morning herb, a lunch herb, and a dinner herb. That's beautiful. Nice, you guys. In the communities, someone had posted, and I can't remember who because several people have responded to it, and I just can't remember who the originating poster was, but someone had posted about what order to go through Family Herbalist in. And we actually had an intended order when we started it. And I didn't want to answer the question because I thought, oh, I want to see what other people say about the order that they go through it in. And it's really exciting to see that everybody has some ideas about order to go through it. So I'm really excited about that thread. If you haven't responded to that yet, it's in the Everyone community, which is the first community down there at the bottom of your dashboard. So you can put in your thoughts about it too. But yeah, I found that really exciting. And in a few more days, we'll put in our thoughts as well. But there's no one right way to do it. So it's really fun to see how everybody is progressing through that material.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Here's a question from Sochi, and it says, I've started taking a shot of apple cider vinegar when I get heartburn, typically after a big meal or after eating something bad for me, like refined carbohydrates. And it's worked beautifully to quell the heartburn. But I was thinking about macerating herbs in the apple cider vinegar, because why not? So first off, is it contraindicated to do this?
No way. No. That's fantastic.
Nope, I wouldn't worry about it. Second, which herbs would you recommend for this application? Okay, so this is, we're taking a shot of apple cider vinegar when you get heartburn, which usually happens after eating a big meal or a bunch of carbs. And so for anybody who's over there saying to yourself, why on earth would anybody take acid when they had heartburn? You haven't taken our digestive health course yet.
Yes, there's a whole chapter about it in the digestive health course.
Yeah. The 2-minute version here is that very frequently heartburn is coming from a condition of low stomach acid, and working with bitters or pungent carminative herbs or with apple cider vinegar taken before the meal, that can boost up acid production or supplement it, and then you digest your food better. And that actually is going to help resolve some of the initiating factors that were causing the heartburn in the first place. Low stomach acid can lead to poor digestion. It can lead to increased pressure in the lower belly that pushes things upward, pushes the stomach upward and makes reflux more likely. There's a lot more to it than that, but anyway, that's the simple idea there. So yeah, so in a case like that, the experience you're going to have is heartburn comes after meals rather than before, or like on an empty stomach. That's a strong indicator for lowered stomach acid, and working with vinegar there works. So yeah, what are we going to put in?
Well, you know, Christy suggested calendula, and that's a beautiful idea. I really like that because calendula has that vulnerary action. So not only are you providing the acid that is like helping the original problem, but you're also able to provide that vulnerary action, which can heal the parts that are irritated. So that's really nice.
Yeah, for me, I was thinking of just some ginger. I like Christy's suggestion of rosemary. That's pretty good. But yeah, or sage, something like that. I see people thinking about catnip and fennel. I haven't tried fennel in a vinegar before.
I bet it would be good.
I'm sure that it would extract the fibers and everything.
Yeah, so, yeah, I bet it would be good. I'm thinking calamus.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, I think it would be delicious.
Yeah. And it all lines up.
And it would be really effective. You've got your warming bitter. Plus calamus has a lot of beneficial action on stomach acid sort of normalization. And yeah, I think that would be really lovely.
Yeah. So, overall we're thinking about aromatics and pungent herbs both. And then, yeah, those vulneraries could make sense too. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, I think we need like a separate window that just opens all the chat stuff. herbs. Okay, we got that one. So now we are up to
There was-
Brianne's question.
Yeah.
Yeah. My boyfriend was just diagnosed with gout, and it's been so painful and frustrating. Over the past month, he's done much better about eating a gout-friendly diet, and his last episode has mostly subsided, but he has also found a helpful doctor finally. We know he'll have it for good now, and it'll flare up again at some point. I just learned 3 new herbs to support gout in the Family Herbalist course, Centauri, Blackberry, and Burdock. So exciting. Can you speak more about your favorite ways to address it, both long-term and possibly acutely? His constitution is dry and cold, and he has poor circulation from a congenital heart condition. So I don't want to forget to say that we have a blog post about gout as well on the website. So you can check that out at commonwealthherbs.com and just put gout in the search bar, and that will come up too. So don't want to forget that. You know, I am particularly struck here by your mention of poor circulation and also a heart condition. And gout there's always a food aspect of it. And so I think there's a lot that we can do both with diet and with supportive herbs that can really help sort of the like trifecta of the gout and the circulation and the heart issues. So obviously, in case you haven't caught on, we are big fans of trying some elimination diet stuff to see if you have food sensitivities, and the Whole30 is a really easy tool that we like for that. There's others, but we like that one because it's easy and it's well documented and you can find it online. So I definitely think, and you mentioned that he's already working on some dietary stuff, but I definitely think that doing a Whole30 is a great idea. But one herb that's really coming to mind for me here is actually ginger, because ginger is overall lowering the inflammatory load. It's going to support circulation and support heart health in a very generalized way. And so what we're really looking to do here is, you know, we'll want some stuff to help in a specific acute flare-up situation. But right now, I think that you're more thinking about how do we sustain this over the long term. And so ginger is one of those that I'm thinking, and you just mentioned that he really likes ginger, so that's going to be very easy to incorporate into his life.
Yeah, it's worth noting the centauri, the blackberry, and the burdock, those are all cooling herbs. They're all drying herbs as well, so that may not match his constitution perfectly. And it doesn't mean you can't work with them, right? Because we can always mitigate these things by working with them in an elixir, perhaps, where you get the element of warmth and moisture coming from the honey, or, you know, there's methods to balance that out. Maybe just to step back and remind ourselves that gout is generally coming from a problem where the kidneys are not sufficiently filtering out uric acid. And so focusing on diuretics and kidney stimulating or kidney supportive herbs can be really helpful as a piece of this work.
And I was just thinking, as I'm sitting here with my goldenrod tea, that goldenrod would be a really nice addition here.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and I mean, then there are some like low-hanging fruit when it comes to gout. And one of them is a cherry. Yep. So.
Oh boy.
What do I mean? Low-hanging fruit, because it's appealing and people will enthusiastically drink, 8 ounces of cherry juice in a given day. And that does make a pretty substantial difference.
Yeah.
If you enjoy celery, celery is not to be underestimated as a kidney supportive and relatively diuretic food herb. So you can eat a bunch of that. Actually, if you ever grow celery, it's a fun idea to take and reserve some of the seed and then go and tincture the celery seed. That is a really good remedy for gout in particular, and for kidney and urinary conditions more generally. That's really quite great.
Yeah. Catherine, I think. Yes, Catherine is asking about cranberry. and wondering if that would be appropriate or if it's a little bit more pelvic floor oriented. I don't think cranberry is a bad idea. I think that would be lovely. Anything that's going to support urinary health overall, and plus provide the anti-inflammatory actions, really, really lovely.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good idea. And then finally, I'll say that in the urinary health course, there's a whole section on gout. So there is much more in that on that category there.
I notice here a couple of folks asking about the Whole30, and thanks for providing the link there. It's just whole30.com. I will note that our most recent podcast episode was about herbs to help you get through your Whole30. And so if any of y'all are considering that, or you've been considering it, because we mention it every week, twice a week, then you should check that podcast out, and you might find some herbal friends there to help you get through.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Peggy says, I made the St. John's wort tea with orange peel from your Instagram video, and holy smokes, I guess I let it sit too long. In general, how long would you steep St. John's wort for the best taste and medicinal extraction, or is it just personal? I'm sitting here thinking, how long is too long? I let mine go overnight and it was really great. So I think it's just personal.
She just loves.
I do. I love St. John's and orange. But those two herbs, really a 20-minute steep is sufficient. You're going to get what you need to get out of them from that.
Yeah. And with this herb and many others, like the longer you steep it, the more bitter it becomes. Some of that, you know, like in the case of chamomile, that's true as well. Some of that's maybe because with chamomile, like your volatiles evaporate and you're just left with the bitter there. But a lot of it is really more coming from the fact that these are just larger constituents that don't leap from the plant matter into the water immediately. They take a while to separate and come out. So yeah, so longer steeps are always going to get you more bitterness. And if you don't love that, then don't steep it as long.
Yeah, yeah. And in this case, it's really fine. It doesn't need to be a long, it's not like nettle where you need to do it overnight or something like that. Yes, okay. All right. Oh, somebody's asking about where to find the podcast. It's the Holistic Herbalism Podcast. It's on every podcast app and also on the website at commonwealthherbs.com/podcast. And new this week, we have started filming the podcast. So if you want to listen with your eyes, you can watch it on YouTube. It's the same podcast. It's just now you can see us saying it instead of just listening to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm scrolling up to grab the next one here.
I'm loving all the people helping each other out here.
You guys, this is beautiful.
Sharing headache herb recommendations for Wendy. Yeah.
Can you just take a minute to look at all of the stuff that you're writing? And you guys, you're starting to have really impressive suggestions for each other. You are doing this work and it is so exciting. Look at you being herbalists. I'm just like, yay. Yeah. Oh, this is good. Okay. There was one down here. Oh, got that. Wow, you guys, this is so good. You're doing really good work.
We got a medicine making note here from Soshi. She made a licorice lotion, and instead of using rose water, made a licorice root decoction and put that in there. Yeah, you did that before once.
I have done that before.
You did that when you were like, I need this to be the strongest licorice lotion that I've ever made.
Yes.
And it worked. Yeah.
Yes, when I have the time, that is the way that I really like to do it best. And it smells really good. Like it has this like exotic kind of like musk, but like the perfume kind of musk, not like the animal kind of musk. But
it smells like yaks.
No, it doesn't smell like yaks. It smells nice somehow. Yeah, that's my favorite way to make it. So that's really good. Okay. Wendy is asking about making products, or wondering if there are good sources for capsules when you need to travel.
I think this is maybe like a who can I trust in the world of, capsulated herbal supplements.
You know, Mountain Rose Herbs actually does make capsules where it is, because you specifically mentioned not standardized. Now, sometimes you want the standardized herb. There are times when that's appropriate, but I know what you mean, where all you want is the ground up herb in the capsule. And Mountain Rose Herbs makes some. They don't have every single thing, but they have a lot. So that's worth checking. And if you don't have an herb shop in your town, then Mountain Rose Herbs is a really good source that you can trust, and you can know that the materials that you get are good quality and that they've also been tested for contaminants.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'll also say, you know, if I'm going to be traveling, or for whatever reason, I think to myself, you know, I'm going to work with this herb as a supplement, as a capsule. Then I'm probably going to check and see if Gaia makes what I want first.
They make really excellent capsules.
They make them real good. They do a lot of standardization. They do a lot of that kind of thing, but they're not, at least as far as I've seen, they're not in the habit of altering the natural balance of constituents that you would find in the plant.
Yeah,
there's a couple cases where they might do it. Like
there's two different definitions of standardization.
Yeah.
There is one where they are standardizing in terms of homogenizing, because every batch is a little bit different. So they look at the average natural constituent ratio and they standardize on the average. There's another definition of standardized, which means we have decided that we want our product to contain 50% of a particular constituent, even though in nature you would only get 5%. And so we standardize on 50%.
Yeah.
So obviously I prefer the first one over the second one, but there are times.
There are cases where it makes sense, right? Two I can think of off the top of my head are with saw palmetto. You get faster and more reliable results with an extract that's been standardized to amplify the presence of some of its constituents. And then another one is ginkgo, and I've found myself very satisfied with ginkgo as a tea or as a tincture in my clients and students, but most of the studies that have been done on ginkgo have been done on an extract that was standardized in the sense of amplifying the presence of the ginkgo constituents, or a subset of them. So, you know, we have our beliefs about which of these make sense and which of them are not actually helpful. Certainly there have been cases of standardization like that have been really problematic. And that, I mean, not that it's all in the past, right? Like you can go now to Amazon and get yourself a St. John's wort capsule that's standardized to X% hypericin, and you're less likely to help with your liver problems or even your depression if you take that, and more likely to give yourself photosensitivity.
Right.
So I'm not too keen on that particular version of a St. John's wort supplement. But yeah. Yeah. Did we cover that?
I think we did.
All right.
Christy has a question about suggestions for post-nasal drip that turned into a clogged, crackly, and draining ear. And I think that Wendy must have been watching the cold and flu course, because Wendy is suggesting ground ivy. And that is my definite favorite for draining in the ears. Catherine is also suggesting eyebright as tea or tincture. Also for draining any kind of excess ENT kind of, you know, ear, nose, throat kind of moisture. And I like that idea a lot too. Depending on where you are in the country, it might be hard to find ground ivy. And so eyebright is usually something you can find in tincture, even at like Whole Foods or a health food store. So if you can't find ground ivy, then it's great to go with the eyebright there. Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess I would say also that another trick from the cold and flu course is a time steam works on your ears too. It doesn't just have to be on your nose. So you can get that time steam going, but then put your ear over it and let all that hot, timey goodness get into your ear. And that will really help, just like it breaks up clogged sinuses and helps them to drain down. Yeah. It'll really help in the ears also.
Yeah, when you turn your head over there, like move your jaw around, make little like shapes and everything with it to try to open and change the configuration in here. I even like pull on my earlobe a little and like move it around back here. So yeah, I find that helpful. Okay.
All right. You guys are hysterical. You really crack me up. Okay.
Okay. Georgia asks, my mom had a small cyst removed from her neck last Thursday. Would a calendula lavender peppermint comfrey salve be appropriate to put on now to help it heal? So it's been I don't know, five
there
days.
Are still stitches. So
no,
there
are still stitches.
No
okay.
salves with stitches.
Yeah. Nope. I wouldn't
and
do that.
No comfrey anywhere near stitches ever. Yeah. Because what happens is that, in fact, I just don't ever work with comfrey. Comfrey can heal the top of a wound over before the under parts of the wound have had a chance to do the job. So if you have an abrasion where it's just like a big, you fell off your bike and you skinned your knee or what, that's not your knee, whatever. You see, I'm like pointing at whatever. You skinned something. And so it's very, very superficial. That's a fine time for comfrey. But any kind of depth to a wound, I just don't. Would you like to disagree?
No, I'm trying to remember the last time I put comfrey on something, and I'm pretty sure it was boot bite from wearing my big fancy heavy black boots to go out to the goth club.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing about comfrey is that this is not a hypothetical. This absolutely happens because it will heal that superficial layer super fast. And then the result is that you can end up with an abscess. And that is not very fun. Yeah. So I never work with comfrey, and I don't even have comfrey. And the reason for that is not because I think nobody should work with it. It's because we often volunteer in a first aid situation, and sometimes other people use my stuff, and I don't want to have comfrey around where I might be busy, they might not ask me, they might say, oh, this is good for wounds, they might put it on something. I just don't want to have that as a possibility.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, with stitches in general, we're not going to want to put salve on there. Just because we don't want them to, we don't really want to soften the skin too much. We don't want them to pull through or anything like that.
And even a compress at this point, if you put a compress on there, you're compromising the strength of the skin that's holding the stitches in. So we don't want to do that yet either.
I might just go with, if it's an uncovered thing and all that, then maybe just spray it with some rose water now and again. Yeah. That will help bring down the inflammation a bit. But yeah, before the stitches come out, we're going to be super cautious here.
Especially where it's not red or infected. It's a little itchy sometimes. Just not salve right now. However, what you can do is drink a lot of tea right now. And this is a place where actually a gut heal tea would probably be really helpful, because remember that the skin that you have on your gut lining is the same as the skin that you have on your skin, right? The only difference is the mucous membrane, but it's the same type of cells. So the herbs that we're going to work with to heal the gut lining, the herbs that we put in a gut heal tea, are also going to provide you with the materials that you need to heal skin as well. Now, obviously, we would prefer to get the herbs to the tissue, right? So ultimately, we do want to get these herbs in contact with the place that we're doing the healing. But until those stitches are out, we really can't safely do that. So working with a gut heal tea internally is still going to provide the body with good stuff. Yeah.
Christy had a cool idea. This was a combination of the witch hazel extract with a bit of yarrow tincture in a spray bottle. Put that on, yeah.
Yeah, and that for infected stitches. When stitches are infected, sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but then we just want to be really careful, because we know that if we soften the skin too much, we can pull the stitches. But in that case, an alcohol-based spray is going to absorb and evaporate fairly quickly. So we're not ending up with a situation where the skin is getting boggy from extra fluid. And so even though I don't love working with alcohol on skin, sometimes it is the right thing to do. Yeah.
All right, we're kind of at the end of our time here. I know that there were a couple questions we didn't quite get to.
Plus, I didn't do any of the questions that were emailed in. Yeah. So if you emailed a question, just grab onto it, and on Thursday, put it in the chat for us, and we'll catch it that way. And if you asked a question in the chat, I think there's 3 of them that we didn't get. Would you mind, please, to grab that and put it in on Thursday? I saw there was one from Peggy and one from Patty. Patty, and one from Sochi still. So if you don't mind, would you guys just copy and paste them and pop them into the chat at the beginning of the night on Thursday, and we'll do yours first?
Yeah.
Then that would be really awesome.
Yeah. I will say we'll have the general rule with Q&A that we're going to answer questions that come in live first. And only if we run out of them will we go to the ones that got emailed. Okay?
Yeah, that seems good.
just for the future, because y'all are here, so you get your answers.
You get your answers first. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Excellent. I am so excited to see you guys again. I'm so excited at all the questions that you had saved up. And I can't wait to see you on Thursday. It's so exciting. It's a whole new year.
All right, everybody. Nice to see you.
Oh, wait, and one other thing. I just want to say again, you guys are doing such good work. It is thrilling to watch you writing your suggestions to each other. I'm so impressed. Yay! Right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us in this replay of our live Q&A session.
If you'd like to learn more about our herbal learning courses and get access to our twice weekly live Q&A sessions so that you can ask us questions directly, then you can check them all out at commonwealthherbs.com/learn.
See you soon.